Hello friends, welcome back to Upward Look TV. This is how the pharmaceutical industry is killing you. Many reports from leading anti-corruption organizations, such as Transparency International, and many others, have highlighted a continuous rise in global bribery and corruption. Transparency International surveyed 114,000 people, across 107 countries, and found that more than half of respondents believe corruption has worsened in the last 2 years. Recent stories regarding an alleged bribery scheme at GlaxoSmithKline's operations have only served to intensify the spotlight on this issue.
The drug industry extorts us. They take any price that they think politicians are willing to accept. It has absolutely nothing to do with research and development costs.
Professor Peter Gutsche is a Danish physician, medical researcher, and leader of the Nordic Center at Copenhagen, Denmark. He is the author of a number of books on evidence-based medicine. Professor Peter said, "We take too much drugs, and it is killing us." He also said, prescription drugs are the third leading cause of death, after heart disease and cancer. Based on the best research he could find, it is estimated that psychiatric drugs alone are also the third major killer, mainly because antidepressants kill many elderly people through falls. This tells us that the pharmaceutical industry that we have for researching, approving, marketing, and using drugs is totally broken.
My name is Peter Gutsche. I'm a director of the Nordic Cochrane Center in Copenhagen and professor of research design and analysis at the University of Copenhagen. 2 years ago, I found out that our prescription drugs are the third leading cause of death after heart disease and cancer. Our drugs kill around 200,000 people in America every year, and half of these people die while they do what their doctors told them. So they die because of the side effects. The other half die because of errors. And it's often the doctors that make the errors, because any drug may come with 20, 30 or 40 warnings, contraindications, precautions and so on. No doctor in the world knows about all this. So they give patients drugs that they should not have given them, that interact dangerously with other drugs or food items or so on. And then the patients die. That's the other half. So
Professor Peter said, medicines are produced by organized crime syndicates. He shows that the official definition of organized crime closely matches the activities of the largest drug companies. He also says that they have all been repeatedly convicted of marketing harmful and often fatal drugs, substantial fraud, price manipulation, and concealment of evidence. The billions of dollars in fines levied against them for these offenses pale in comparison to the profits they continue to make, so these convictions are merely the cost of doing business. Could you imagine that, friends?
The other thing I found out 2 years ago was that much of what the drug industry does fulfills the criteria for organized crime in US law. And they behave in many ways like the mafia does. They corrupt everyone they can corrupt. They have bought every type of person, even including ministers of health in some countries. So there is a huge amount of corruption. In my country, for example, Denmark, we are regarded as having very little corruption. But yet we have thousands of doctors on industry payroll, although we are just 20,000 doctors. So this is an effective kind of corruption. The drug industry buys the professors first, then chiefs of department, then other chief physicians and so on. They don't buy junior doctors. So when several thousands are on industry payroll, it's really, really bad. And that's why I wrote my book, Deadly Medicines and Organized Crime, how Big Pharma has corrupted healthcare. I hope to convince patients not to take so many drugs, because so many die from the drugs they take.
Friends, people need to understand that drugs do not cure disease. It is true that they sometimes afford present relief, and the patient appears to recover as the result of their use. This is because your body has sufficient vital force to expel the poisons and to correct the conditions that caused the disease. Health is recovered in spite of the drug. but in most cases the drug only changes the form and location of the disease. Often the effect of the poison seems to be overcome for a time, but the results remain in the system and work great harm at some later period. This is from the book Ministry of Healing, page 126.
In my country, people take so many drugs that every single citizen can be in treatment with 1.5 drugs from they are born till they die. This is incredible. And drugs are not that helpful. And they kill very many of us. We know that. That's why drugs are the third major killer after heart disease and cancer. So what we need in the coming years is to take far fewer drugs than what we do currently. If we did that and we were careful, then we could live longer and live better lives. Because drugs have many side effects, and patients often don't realize that when they become worse, that it could be a side effect of the drug, which they continue taking because that's what their doctors tell them. So when I was a specialist in internal medicine, what I very often did was that I stopped a lot of drugs, particularly in elderly people. And it's quite revealing to see a bedridden elderly person come into your ward, and when you stop the drugs, I mean, that person becomes many years younger. And many of these drugs affect the brain, and old people tolerate that very, very badly. They fall, and when they break a hip, 1/4 of them die. And for example, antidepressant drugs are used in more than 10% of our elderly. And they seem to kill 3% of them every year. I mean, if 100 old people take an antidepressant for 1 year, 3% of them will die because they fall and break their hip. This is a huge death rate. So a lot of other drugs than antidepressants also make people fall and kill them. And they may affect your cognition, your memory, and all these things. And then they interact in ways that we know almost nothing about. Very many elderly, they take more than 5 drugs a day. And we actually don't know how these drugs interact with each other. What we do know is that all drugs have many effects in the body, and some of them interact also in their metabolism, so that you can get a too high concentration of a drug if you take other drugs simultaneously. So we make a lot of harms that we don't even recognize.
Our bodies do not really need drugs because of their horrendous side effects. Let food be thy medicine, and let medicine be thy food. This is a famous quote that is often attributed to Hippocrates, who lived between 460 BC and 375 BC. The quote is still true today, after thousands of years it was made. God has given us natural remedies, and God's remedies are the simple agencies of nature that will not tax or debilitate the body through their powerful side effects. The natural remedies from God are pure air, sunlight, rest, exercise, proper diet, clean water, exercising temperance in all things, and trust in divine power. These are the simple remedies, for the want of which thousands are dying, yet these remedies are going out of date, because their skillful use requires work that people do not appreciate, and the pharmaceutical companies do not want you to know. The big pharma companies would rather sell you their drugs, that are both expensive, and the effect produced upon the body is debilitating. Read more from the book, Counsels on Food and Diets, page 301.
I have a pretty colorful collection of things people have called me during all these years. And sometimes journalists have asked me, why do you always look up controversy? And my reply is, I don't. Controversy looks me up. Because it's not popular to tell the truth in healthcare. You will get a lot of enemies, because a lot of people make money on false premises, doctors and industry alike. And our drug regulators and our politicians, they are on board on this wagon. So very few people are independent of money in healthcare.
That's the gospel truth. The big pharmaceutical, organized crime syndicates, do not want you to know the truth. Their doctors often advise sick people to take drugs, and more drugs until the person dies, or you would be asked to visit foreign countries, or to traverse the ocean, in order to regain health. In 9 cases out of 10, if the sick would eat temperately, and engage in healthful exercise, with a cheerful spirit, they would regain health, and save time and money. Exercise, and a free abundant use of fresh air, and sunlight, these blessings which heaven has bestowed upon everyone, would in many cases give life, and strength to the emaciated sick people. Friends, I hope you liked this video. I will stop here, and will be uploading another one soon. This channel exists to expose lies, and tell you the truth. I love you all. Do not forget to subscribe, like and share.